If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified of all future uploads, and check the description box below the video for important links and information. How you doing, guys? This is Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com. Seen a lot of talk in most of the videos talking about preparing for the upcoming and current economic crises, that one of the things everyone should do is avoid debt. Just in general, anyone who's talking about, economic preparedness, just planning for the future, whatever, usually mentions avoiding debt, at least consumer debt. But a lot of people wondering, what's going to happen to these debts if there is some sort of massive economic collapse, massive currency crisis, hyperinflation, whatever. Because we've all heard the stories of the people in Weimar Germany who paid off a massive estate with a sack of potatoes once the hyperinflation got that bad. And it is true that in a hyperinflationary or even a significantly inflationary environment, the people who are holding debts, who have debt, end up usually on the better side of it, because that debt becomes increasingly worthless or increasingly small in amount, comparatively speaking, to the value of everything else. As the currency goes to zero, a debt of a small amount of that currency becomes meaningless. So, if a loaf of bread costs $100 and everything else has gone up that much, then a debt of $50,000 isn't going to seem as onerous as it did, back when the loaf of bread was $1. If it might be worth 100 times less compared to the things that you still own. Now, the key elements of that are in compared to the things that you own. So if you don't have anything else, if you don't have any income, if you're not able to maintain an income, if you don't have assets that can rise with inflation, then that debt is just going to still be there. But normally speaking, in a general sense, yes, the debts that you have, if there's significant inflation, will be rendered much more insignificant by that inflation. But like I said, that's a general sense. There's a lot of other things can happen. And if it's something that is a secured debt, meaning it has a collateral behind it, like a house loan or a car loan, then really your worst case scenario is losing that asset and your credit being harmed. If it's an unsecured debt, it can get a little more murkier, because certainly they don't even have an asset that they can, repossess, like with a car, or foreclose on with a house. So you can't lose anything really, but obviously you can still have your credit harmed. And then at that point, what will happen depends on just what's going to happen in the future. As of right now, there's really nothing that a company can do other than sue you if they think that you actually do have the money or something like that. In the future, it becomes a little more murkier when you add in the concepts of, currency switching to a new form of money, adding in central bank digital currencies and stuff like that. Like, what is going to happen with a debt denominated in US dollars if we did switch to some new form of currency? There's just no telling what they might do with that. They, all the way from it wipes it out and you don't have to owe it anymore, all the way to, now you had $50,000 worth of debt, now you have 50,000 Amero worth of debt, and it's actually worth way more, and so you're crushed. I don't think that's as likely, for the simple reason that a lot of the people that play these games with the debt are the rich people, the 1%. They're the ones who are going to benefit most from debts being wiped out, because they buy up a bunch of real assets on credit, and then when that credit or the loan basically evaporates, then they bought all that stuff for basically nothing. They gave away dollars to get real things, and then the dollars became worthless, and the real stuff they still have. So I don't think it's a huge risk that would happen, that you would end up being, in a much, much worse situation in an economic collapse. But you could still potentially be in a bad situation. So I wouldn't purposefully go racking up a bunch of debt that's unsecured. If you have the ability to get, real property, like the rich people do, on a low interest loans that you can actually cover the payments on if nothing does happen, then I think that could potentially put you in a really fantastic situation once we have significantly more inflation. Obviously, this is not financial advice. That's just my opinion on how things could go. But you never know. So, as always, putting yourself in a position where you would be struggling to pay off would be bad, and that can always be a rough spot. But it's just my opinion that I think most people with debts will end up better off after a financial collapse, in relation specifically to the debt, not just in general. But I do think that the debts will likely not be as burdensome and might just disappear completely. But it's a risk you're taking. So you'd have to, if you were looking at your situation, whether you should pay off debt or buy more physical assets, I personally would always opt towards getting more stuff at this point in time. But like I said, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. And for me, the black swan is if there was some sort of currency switch. If you're talking purely hyperinflation or significant inflation, then yeah, that definitely is in favor of the deadee, not the debtor, or not the person who's loaning the money, but the person who took out the loan, if they use that to buy real assets. If you just used it to spend it on a bunch of, partying or whatever, then it's really not going to help you. You still might lose the debt, which would be nice, but it wouldn't have really put you in a better position. Whereas people who bought a bunch of real estate, let's say, or businesses like share buybacks for their company, they borrowed money to buy a bunch of the ownership of their company back, and now they owe millions of dollars, and all of a sudden inflation goes to 1,000% a year. That loan is going to become a lot less onerous, a lot easier to pay off. So that's just my opinion on the matter. I do think in general it's not a huge risk for the company, because I think the odds of them going the whole like debtor prison route and stuff like that, while possible, is unlikely. I think it's much more likely that we'll see what happened in all the other similar scenarios through history, that the value of the currency continues to decline. So any people who have assets that are basically loans in that currency are just going to lose the value of that completely, and the people who took out that loan will be the beneficiaries of that most of the time. Let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you later.